After a wild opener in Austria, the top open-wheel pro hopefuls in all of iRacing are on a mission for early season points in northern Italy. This is round 2 of the GP Turn Racing iRacing qualifying series for the virtual Autodromo Internazionale Enzo E. Dino Ferrari here on FTF.gg. Hello everyone, I'm Justin Prince. Alongside the move today once more is Joey Atterbury for Pro Qualifier coverage for the Grand Prix Turn Racing iRacing series. Last week was a busy time for our drivers, and especially when it comes to top split action, with some of the drivers having such a quick turnaround, remember, for the preparation for that opening race. Many questions remain today on which drivers will rise and fall at Imola.
Yeah, we are here at another road course. We kicked things off at the Red Bull Ring, a traditional road course. Well, guess what? We're going to back it up with another traditional road course, but things are going to get a little bit spicier after these first few weeks. But I think we're going to see similar names up here at the front, albeit a different style of racetrack today.
Yes, indeed. Let's take a quick glance at that schedule, because remember, when it came to the race at the Red Bull Ring, Altus Esports really set that bar to start the series. In fact, before the said series began for the Pro Qualifiers, the team said on social media about how they were looking to turn up in force. Well, they surely did. A team 1, 2, 3, 4 in qualifying at a podium sweep by Aaron Velasquez, Eduardo Leo, Marcos Nunez, all setting the tempo to start this series. Matt Emery, Sam Cotter, remember, turned up in the top 5 as well to start the campaign. However, remember, there is a drop round in this Pro Qualifying series. Sam Kiter confirmed earlier today that he plans to take his one drop round available here at this racetrack in Italy.
It's going to be interesting to see how this season plays out, Justin, because round 2 already drop weeks being used. So the point system, it's going to start to compile as we go along. But I think we're already seeing some curveballs being thrown even just a second week into it.
Now let's talk about this racetrack in turn, because when it comes to the circuit, it's important to mention that Imola was not on the schedule back in 2021 for the Pro Series. It's the first of those that have that distinction here today. And with the racetrack that has this mix of corners and straightaways like it does today, what would you expect for the Dallara IR01s here at this facility?
Well, you look at the general shape of this racetrack. Look at the long front straightaway. That part of the racetrack is crucial today, leading down into the first chicane, Tamburello. Mind you, there are 4 chicanes on this racetrack in total. Count them all, but it's going to be crucial being hard on the brakes going into these corners. You got to be aggressive with the downforce, the grip that this Dallara IR01 machine gives you, and I think probably one of the most crucial corners, Ravazza. You got to put the power down. 900 horsepower to the ground to give you that launch down the front straightaway.
And an interesting thing to mention, too, that popped up at the Red Bull Ring was strategy, strategy, and more strategy. We talked about how drivers were considering the fuel mileage in terms of how much fuel you put in based on turn on what tire compound they started. Sam Cotter, remember, put in the good point we've seen on deciding to underfuel the car to start. In turn, a bit of a wider range for the window, you'd have to think here today. How in turn do you see that strategy playing out today with these cars, knowing what Sam Kiter showed the field what you could do if you're stuck in the mid-pack?
I would like to see some more competitors start to do those alternate strategies, but I think no matter what, we're going to see them qualify on the red tires. Probably going to see everybody start on those yellows and then end up going to the white, the hard compound tires. But it'll be interesting to see if there's going to be any differences, like you said, with that pit stop window. 33 laps total today. That pit stop window, about 14 to 21 laps. So you might see some early pitters. You might see some guys stretch it out all the way to the end. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
I'm very curious, too, on which drivers really pick up on the turnaround. Drivers like Alex Gall come to mind, for example, that had early race struggles, remember, where some of them barely made it 3 corners. Already some drivers, Sanchez himself actually told me before today, if he doesn't do well today, then it's basically sink or swim for this pro qualifier for him.
Well, I think one thing that's a big difference between the Red Bull Ring and Imola here is just the style of the racetrack. The racing that we are going to get today is completely different. Round 1 was all about the top speed and hard on the brakes, getting out of the corners. Well, guess what? Imola is more about being more aggressive, going through the chicanes, and then only the one real big straightaway here, the front straightaway. So I feel like the racing that we're going to see is going to be different than the Red Bull Ring. That might suit some competitors more than others.
And in turn, we've seen as well, and talked about a touch bit already, teamwork coming into play early on. How does that play into the dynamic of things? Because Altus had the numbers to start off the pro qualifiers. In turn, though, now with the chance to be able to have a full week to prepare, how does that switch around in turn with more prep time and more time in general to put down the laps for the track?
I think as we get deeper into this championship, Justin, we're going to see the cream rise to the top. Not that it hasn't already with this top split. It's incredibly impressive, the drivers that have turned out. But you're right. Who's going to put in that practice time each and every day, each and every week to continue that momentum, continue those championship runs? Because remember, only round 2, we got, 5 more to go.
Yes, indeed. It's going to be curious to see how these drivers play things out here in Northern Italy today and see which drivers make their way through the pack, which drivers also in turn, curiously, insert themselves up from second split to top split. Of note, drivers like the king of the houses in victory lane, Philip Kraus, was top 10 of the points entering the second round. He was one of the second split drivers, one of the notables looking to qualify through. We'll see who gets through the field as we get things sorted for qualifier. As the drivers get situated and ready to put down some flying laps for that qualifying, it's time to get ready to approach the track. On the call for today's round once more is SRO commentator DJ Clark, as well as the Pro Series lead commentator from 2021, Jake Sperry. Jake?
Thank you, Justin. We are on the banks of the Santerno River here in Emilia-Romagna, one of the few circuits in the world to have been hosting racing in 2 countries, not only just itself in Italy, but also with San Marino as well. This is a legendary circuit with legendary racing corners, every one steeped in history. And this is a circuit, DJ, that you cannot ask anything more for. There's 4 minutes left in qualifying for round 2 in the championship. This is your wake-up call if you hadn't had it already at the Red Bull Ring.
Very, very much so here, Jake. This is a far more technical circuit, I would argue, than the Red Bull Ring, and that means it's going to require a lot more patience and a lot more control from these drivers. Remember, we've got about 900 brake horsepower coming through the rear axle on these cars, so watch for a little bit of tire spin to potentially develop in these cars. Watch for the aero wash to really play through some of these medium-speed corners. This, though, is where this car is going to shine.
Oh, it absolutely is. And you're starting to sense where these drivers are going, as most of the drivers now are looking at their laps going, okay, this is what we've got on the board. This is what we're going to manage. It's currently Carlos Fenalosa who is on the pole position as it stands. And this is one of the few circuits where track position is going to matter around the racing that we've got, because there are so many chicanes, because this is a high downforce spectacle. You are going to need to put yourself in the best position. And making that run to the line goes Andreas Henkel, looking to try and improve on his time. And he finds himself up only to the 14th position with his lap time, so not really able to get too much out of it. We talk about drivers week to week. This is going to be about who has the consistency value over 7 weeks of qualifying. And that, I think, is the big shake-up, because you got your winner last time out, Aaron Vasquez, down in 9th position at this point in time.
Exactly, and the absolutely diametrically opposed type of circuits that we deal with. It's showing who's better at the technical and who's better at rolling a little bit more speed. That was last week. That technical precision is going to be this week, and I fully agree with you that this is going to be a track position race. Yes, as Joey said, there's a long front straightaway to maybe get a draft down, but it gets very tight when you come down into Tamburello.
Alessandro Quintale making a run, or Quintaye making a run over to the finish line, a 1:35.0, an outlap. This will be the last flyer. They get 8 minutes to set 2 lap times. They don't get until the end of the session, so this is important. Making a run out of Tamburello to the Villeneuve chicane here, the left then the right, and then to arguably the most underrated corner in racing history, the Toza hairpin.
Oh, it's absolutely spectacular. A very, very nice, pretty much 180-degree corner that rises up as you bring it on the track. And then, Jake, into one of my favorite corners to drive in these cars, up into Piratella, flat out and hold on.
The challenge of turning and braking, that is Acqua Minerale. Back up the hill, looking for the Curva Grassini, the right and the left, after the famous Fausto Grassini, now in charge of his own MotoGP team, housing Alex Marquez and Fabio Di Gianantonio. Now comes the run to Ravazza, arguably the most prettiest houses in the world, the greatest places to be in terms of sitting through. If there were houses in the road, I'd be very, very worried. But getting a little kick off the curb, going over the line, what can Quintaye do, making that charge over towards the line? Answer is a 79 only, can only manage 18th place, so not what the doctor ordered in terms of times. That is everybody done then. In terms of qualifying, we can take ourselves over and have a look at our starting grid. This is how everyone is going to be lining up, and I tell you what, the Iberians came out in force. Pedalosa, Espes, Chaviros, Marcos Nunez, your top 4. It is so, so strong up at the front of the field. Following that, though, on the 3rd row is Jakub Maciejewski. He'll start from 5th, with Matt Emery 4th in the championship for Veloce, going from 6th position. A good bounce back from Alex Gal. Starts 7th as the Frenchman, with Simone Maria Marchena, who needs a recovery after throwing it in the wall from what was a guaranteed podium position. Daniel Sivichabo will start from 9th, with Aaron Vasquez making up the top 10 of the grid. Over the page we go, and it's Gail Valero for Apex. Back there in 11th position has Michael Janney, his teammate for Company the American, in 12th place. Manel Kubo Torres starts 13th alongside Kalen Chin, the Australian, with Andreas Henkel and Marcus Luzio on 15th and 16th positions respectively. Final 3 have all not made a start in top split. You've got Manu Rayo Largo, you've then got Alessandro Quintaye on home soil, and then you've got Jorge Martinez for Mag Performance Sim Racing Team. He's got a lot of work to do today from the 19th position on the grid. But DJ, as they line themselves up ready, it's a slight curve to start to get to the fabled Tamburello chicane, which is very much a one-line suits all chicane.
Yeah, it very much is a one-way street down into Tamburello. I think you're going to see some drivers be a little bit aggressive off of the start here. As you said, difficult to overtake around the circuit. So I think what we're going to see is a lot of very, very aggressive maneuvers going down into that first corner. Everybody's scrambling for a position.
They're all going to scramble, and this is pretty much walking a tightrope. This is a narrow circuit. It's an old school circuit. It's 33 laps here today, so they're racing just over 100 miles. That pit window, we're thinking 14 to 21 laps. Could be a bit less, could be a bit more. It's all up to who wants to do what, but they must start on the qualifying tyres they've gone with. Everyone except Martinez out there on the medium compound yellow tyres. So Martinez, with an alternative strategy here today, starts on the furthest different tyre, which is the hard tyre, the slow tyre to move to that fast one. Let's get ready though. Round 2 of the championship gets itself underway, and some shocking starts from the second row of the grid. Xavi Rose went backwards. Marcos Nunez went even further backwards. They're almost in the grass. They rush in through, and as they go through, there's one backwards. Going in through Tamarello, avoids everybody as they go through. Some great heads-up driving. It was Marcus Luzio who was around in the early stages.
Yes, and I believe Jorge Martinez also got out of the way there to avoid that spinning car, but as you said, a terrible start in the middle of the field there for a couple of drivers, Nunez in particular, but up at the front here, a little bit of side-by-side farther back in, but it looks like Espes trying to challenge on Fenalosa.
The Obsidian Racing driver looking to challenge the Altus driver there, 5 versus 6 in this field. The driver with the lowest iRacing in the field started third, went backwards. Jakub Maciejewski could start from him. He's up 2 places then as they rush up the hill to the Curva Grassini for the first time of 33, the former Variante Alto, which used to be the most scary chicane in the world.
And it still is particularly terrifying in open wheel machinery such as this. You've got to be very, very cautious when you come over the massive curves to the inside there. Otherwise, you will damage the suspension and damage the undertray.
You absolutely will. You have to be alert with these machines. You cannot afford to be over-aggressive with the curbs. 1 lap then, scored complete here at Imola. The charge is on who is going to be patient and who is not. Maciejewski making himself known then in 3rd position. Matt Emery in 4th. Simone Maria Marchedo in 5th. Aaron Vasquez has had a fantastic start. He's up 4 places already. Michael Gianni up 6, and there's a car around there, and it looks like that is Gael Valero, the Frenchman, in trouble, and he has struggles with the flick spin. So much torque in those back wheels.
Yeah, very much so. Almost 900 horsepower, as we said earlier, a little bit more almost coming through there as they run. Here we go. A little bit of a battle playing out with Altus teammates right now. This is Vasquez and Marcheno.
It is. So now the question is going to be for Simone Maria Marcheno, who's used his drop round with the opening round of the championship, with Aaron Vasquez, the championship leader, behind. Are there going to be team games that are going to be played this early in the season, or are they still at Rubbings Racing and going out there and trying to do what they can? We go on board with Vasquez, descending down the hill in towards the 2 Ravazzas. There's a reason why, DJ, this place was chosen 3 years ago. Spin! Spin, spin, spin! Round! That's Pablo Espes going around a Ravazza. He drops way down the order. He's right to the back.
Oh my goodness, out of 2nd place. He falls all the way down through the order. Credit there potentially to Maciejewski, who was putting pressure on the back of him, but now Matt Emery's been able to get a move on Jacob.
He has, so Jakub Maciejewski falls back behind. Matt Emery, the Veloce Esports driver, is making a statement, and that statement is, I can't let Carlos Fenalosa get away in this race. Already 1.3 seconds, the margin at the front of this field. He has got to be rapid to chase that back, but some brilliant changes that have been going on. I was going to say, this was the place for the UCI Cycling World Championships a couple of years ago, won by Julian Alaphilippe. So this is a circuit which has its hills and has its character.
Yeah, it certainly does, and picking up a little bit of that was Matt Emery there. Aggressive line coming out of Agua Minerale. Thought about a little bit of a pass there, did Jakob, but he's going to stay back in the line. That's going to check him right up into line here with the number 1 and the number 3 of those Altus Esport entries.
Yeah, let's take a little look then at what happened to Pablo Espes here. Charging to try and stay with Fenalosa. Aggressive over the first curve. Gets to the second curve, back steps out, and he just can't control the slide that he had there. Finds himself on the side of everybody else as he tries to get going. But look at how much difficulty he had to get to top speed as he was sliding about in the grass. While that's happening, though, there's already one taker down into pit lane already, and that is not going to be the plan that was wanted for Pablo Espes. He finds himself now with a very alternative strategy.
Yeah, it may even be one that's going to put him into a situation where he's got to make a 2-stop strategy, which would be absolutely detrimental. Oh, go right there, Matt Emery.
Yeah, he had to, because down the inside was Simone Maria Marcheno. He's on home soil, even though he is from the islands in the south. Contact, hip check for Matt Emery. He'll get demoted right down the back of the group, and that will put him behind the likes of Daniel Civi-Sabo out there on track. So he's really now lost a lot of time here as Matt. It's he now racing with Alex Gal.
And that is exactly what can happen there if you are trying to run too wide up through Piratella. You just carry too much speed. There's too much lateral load going through the tires, and they will not grip out, and you will track wide.
Yes, you will. And this is a car that has a very unique profile within iRacing. This is one of the cars which you certainly sense that you drive this, you get a feel, you lose a little bit of touch with everything else. It's that sort of machinery. But Marcheno and Vasquez, who started 8th and 10th, well, after just 4 laps of this race, they've jumped up to 3rd and 4th. This Altus team is motoring in the early stages, and I wonder if they have underfueled their car, that they've got a lighter car compared to everyone else.
Well, we certainly saw last time that was a strategy that played out in spades. Maybe that's what they're going for here today. I do also think...
Oh, wow! What a save from 5th position there. That was dramas, and it's still dramas there for Chabi Rose as Kalen Chin takes a position away. Michael Janney will be next. All sorts of squirrely. He was wrestling that car.
Yeah, he certainly was. And look there, what happened to Ross behind him. He decided not to go for the overtake into Piratella, seeing exactly what happened there earlier on.
Yes, and that is crucial. Piratella is the ultimate plateau corner, and it's so tough to make a move up at that section of the track because the profile of that corner is blind, and you've got a closed apex.
Exactly, and if you try to go through too wide there through then, it's going to be able to see exactly what has happened time in and time out. Little bit of squirreliness there coming out of Vasquez off of Ravazza, but they're able to keep it together, and those Altus boys are starting to build a gap.
They are. This is the key straight, though, to get those moves done. The Altus machine's going for it. There goes the move, though. Chabi Rose not going to wait for love nor money. He's going to take that overtake and make it happen. And he is the sort of driver that you give him just the smallest flint and he will make an explosion. He is that sort of talent of a driver where you look at what he's capable of doing. He is capable of turning heads and turning the world to his tune, but he's got to try and take the mistakes out of his game. That's the one thing that costs him race on race.
Well, and especially at a place like Imola here, even the merest of mistakes will absolutely throw you offline. And just as close as we're seeing this entire field running, it's going to lose you 3, 4, 5 positions. So he's got to really buckle down here at this point and minimize any of the merest mistakes.
He absolutely does, and he's got to work. Now, we're going to go over to pit lane with Justin here, because Justin, a lot actually happening there over those opening couple of laps. The interesting thing being who Gail Valero managed to tangle with.
Yes, indeed, especially with some of those drivers up towards the front. That was a fear, in fact, for a couple competitors. Gal did mention before today's race how he felt how that opening corner was a fundle. Guess where a lot of the incidents have happened today? Turn 1 here today. Now, in regards to Espes, though, it's worth noting that they also had contact last week and said how it was difficult, the team did, on social media about how difficult it was to get through the traffic because of that contact before. Now, because of that situation, they've elected to go on the yellow wall tires to see what they can do here. Again, though, it's outside that estimated window, so this could get very tricky now if you're Espes.
Yeah, Pablo Espes out on the hard tyre. There is a reason that he can go out that long, but he'll have to fuel save heavily if he wants to go into a one-stop strategy. That's going to be his big Damocles hanging over the top of him. Now, Jakub Maciejewski here, the DJ, has been reeled back in by Simone Maria Marcheno. 0.3 of a second a lap, the difference maker at this point.
Yeah, that is absolutely massive, and crucially here at this point for Simone, he is going to be able to close in courtesy of that draft. It's going to be within 0.5 of a second. There's going to be a big sweep, and that's going to help as well.
That is certainly going to help. Pushing a little bit too hard down the hill at Ravazza. Kuba, look behind you. Simone is going to make a move. And because of the draft, they're going to bring in Aaron Vasquez through as well. Does he get checked up enough, though, to make it 3 wide? He tucks back into the slipstream of his teammate. They both hit the brakes, and both of the Altus cars go through. It's Altus locking the podium again.
And that is absolutely pixel perfect. Therefore, Altus, they want to be able to be running 2-3 here at this point, and they'll be able to employ a little bit of team strategy if they want to try to close down on Fenalosa.
But wake up, Sleepy Jean. Just behind is Chabi Rose, who gained an age Eternum on the brakes into the opening corner there at Tamburello. 2, 3, and 4. out on track, and he has brought the party with him. Kalen Chin, Daniel Civi-Szabo, Michael Janney, Matt Emery, Manel Kubo Torres, Alex Gal, Mano Reolago, and Marcos Nunez, who started in 4th and is down to 13th. Still, though, the looks are there. Kalen Chin sitting patiently on the back of Chabi Rose, whose efforts in Split 2 last week got him inside the top 15, put him in a transfer place for the championship, were it to end after just 1 round, DJ.
Yeah, exactly. So that's good running here for Tavi, but I think the problem that he's going to encounter here at this point is Jakub Maciejewski up ahead of him. Looked like he slowed him down coming down through Rivazza. It checked him up a little bit, but we've got side-by-side farther back. That's Civi-Szabo and Chin.
Yeah, that's Daniel Civi-Szabo, the Apex Academy car, making the pass. Pushes a bit too wide, though, through Tamburello. That's going to open up the door then, to try and attack back towards Villeneuve. Kalen Chin having to be careful here, and on the brakes, Janney lifting out of it, heading towards Villeneuve. You can so easily just get stuck around a track like this, because the straight, for what this circuit is, for how beautiful it is, everywhere you look, you're about 50 meters short of an overtake.
Yeah, you really and truly are. You've got to be watching in your rearview mirror as much as possible. It's very, very difficult to be able to actually do both at the same time, to be looking ahead and behind, but these drivers managing it beautifully.
They are managing it, but they are going to be at risk of losing time. That move has opened up that gap between Civi-Szabo and Chabi Rose to 1.3 seconds. Right out there over the AstroTurf. On the outside goes Civi-Szabo. That is how quickly you have to be alert to this machine, because this is the sort of circuit where you don't want to be as a racing driver, fighting this car in the low to medium revs.
No, you certainly do not. If you're down in those lower medium revs, what that means is you're going to be at massive, massive risk of wheel spin coming off the line, as here we've got a little bit more side by side, going to fall back into line, but you get that wheel spin, that's less friction, that's less pushing you down the road, and it's going to absolutely hurt you.
It certainly will. There are a few drivers out there in this field who are certainly hoping that they can really make a challenge here today, that they can score some all-important points. But as we talk about points here today, it's also worth noting how the point system works, and it works on that strength of field basis. Everybody has an iRacing out there in this field, which is earned through official series racing as we focus on 4th and 5th positions. Jakub Maciejewski looking back at Chabi Rose. This is the perfect example. Maciejewski's got the 8th best iRacing in this field. Chabi Rose, the 19th best of 19. So Chabi Rose is the last driver into this field with about 6.5k iRating. The strength of field is 8,100.
Which is just a ridiculous margin. For those that are just tuning in and not sure what the standard fair I rating is, you start off with an I rating of 1250. If you are over 2K, you're pretty good. If you are getting up into the 5, 6, 7,000s, you are world class, and that's all we've got here today.
The best of the best here in the GP Turn Racing iRacing qualifying series, round 2 of 7, as Alex Gal there in the background had a fight with Matt Emery side by side, was trying to make that pass, and there is Alex Gal. He's off the road.
He's off the road, the bright yellow machine down into, I believe that's coming through Tamburello. Not entirely sure what happened to him, but I've got to imagine into that corner, it may have been a little bit of argy-bargy.
Well, he was trying to make the pass around the outside, and then as he went through, there was no argy-bargy to be said of at all. He just lost it all on his own. The FTF.GG replay will see the case. Look at how they fought in front as well with Daniel Civi-Szabo and co. But he goes through turn 1, just catches there. The anti-cut curbs on the inside, unsettles the car, compression damps it, and that's it. Round you go.
Exactly, that's it, and around you go, and that's just how aero-sensitive these cars are here, Jake. You've got to make sure you keep everything together and that you know exactly what the car is going to be doing no matter what you put it through. As you said, going over that anti-cut curb ever so slightly breaks the Venturi tunnel on the bottom of the car. You try to put the power down, and it throws out on you.
Yeah, he's doing a very, very good job at the moment, and he's certainly looking. There's Daniel Sabo, then finding himself in a really, really eclectic race. That's Manel Kubo and co, who is there leading that group. So Manel Kubo making the move forward, gets past Kalen Chin. Then you've got Marcos Nunez there just behind, and Matt Emery trying to hold on to the wheels in the 15th position. Now, Justin, he's one of only 2 drivers in this field running with a dedicated spotter at this moment in time.
Yes, indeed. Amongst those working amongst the cars, Lemonick working with Maciejewski, currently trying to help along inside that top 5. Also averting Paddington once those working with Emery today. And most people don't realize how critical that can be for a series like this, because some of the top teams back in 2021, remember, had as many as 2 or 3 people per car, making sure they had a strategist to make sure everyone was in sync, in turn, and making sure they were good to go on those fuel marks. It can be so complicated, as we've talked about in the past, especially at this level, to try and have to navigate all those numbers, make sure you're on the right strat, make sure you're good to go on the fly on a strategy difference when you don't have that secondary opinion or tertiary opinion like some of the drivers do not have today, and the minority do have for this event today.
Huge kicker tail for Kalen Chin, who has woken up so early in the morning to try and qualify himself into this series. He's up against, though, the Australian-based team run by Simon Feigl. That, of course, is Altus Esports. That is Marcos Nunez making that move. And you have to talk about the history of that Altus team, because that came out of the Evolution Racing team, who at one stage in time, DJ, was the super team that it was trying to build by Brenton O'Brien. Simon Feigl, one of his drivers, thought there was too much of a split in Evolution Racing team and said, you know what? We're going to go off and form our own team called Altus Esports. Many people looked at that team and thought, what do you think you're doing? You're leaving the Evolution Racing team. Right now, I think it's the best team in sim racing at this point.
I've got to agree with you there. It's absolutely incredible. And if you want proof on just how good that team is, look no further than last week, where for a long portion of the race, we were running 1, 2, 3 Altus Esports. They have got the talent, they have got the mechanical ability, they've got the engineering setups, and they are good. But we've got drivers in pit lane.
Yeah, and it's Carlos Fenalosa here, Justin, the race leader, fueled light.
And this was a discussion we had before today. We were expecting drivers to go as early as lap 13 with the race analysis. It looks like they've taken note on what the call was with how much Sam Conner picked up track position by doing a similar call with the Red Bull Ring. So some of the Altus machines electing to do so. Chin also in that pit lane, electing to go in the window. This is the start of the estimated window for today, around the start of the mark, depending on what compound you began this race on.
And almost everyone started on the medium, moving to the hard tyre. So Fenalosa now will be dealing with a tyre that's not as good, a car that is heavier than those around. This is where it's make or break for Simone Maria Marcheno and Aaron Vasquez in terms of how they want this race to go and how they want to score their points. Chabi Rose just behind, don't count him out. He's a live wire if ever there was one. And then Jakub Maciejewski. Yes, he has been losing positions so far in this race. Had a great start, fallen back to 5th position, so you would say right in line with where his pace is. But the Drago Esports driver has proven time and again in open wheel. I look back to the Skip Barber iRacing series. He's always up there. He's always got the ability to score well.
Always got the ability to score well, and we've got to remember here what he could be doing. He could be trying to run a little bit long, maybe do a little bit of fuel saving here, could be trying to save the tires for a couple of last lap bombs, but I'll tell you what, we got a lot of drivers into pit lane right now.
Justin, 2 Apex Academy cars, 1 Apex Racing car leading the dice down into the pits on lap 15.
It looks like most drivers are going with that medium to hard strategy today, trying to get the short fuel run early. All the Apex Academy and Apex Racing cars in tow, in sync, off and away, in a line, in fact. And that's a major thing for this race right now, Jake, is being able to work together. We've seen how impactful that was to help your competitors save a little bit for that last part of the race when the points really solidify themselves for position. They seem to be all in sync to work together to keep up with their competitors.
From top to bottom, Daniel Sivishabo, Michael Janney, and then Manel Kubo Torres. Those 3 out there on circuit together in what is right now 10th, 11th, and 12th positions. here in this race. It is a race where everything matters in terms of strategy. It opens everything up. 19 laps to go in the GP Turn Racing iRacing qualifying series. 1 in, 1 out. Simone in, Aaron Vasquez stays out here, DJ.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely surprised by that. With the pace that we've seen, probably did a little bit of fuel save in there, did Vasquez, and so that's going to allow for him to be able to stretch this stint a little bit longer. And also looks like Marcos Nunez is going to be another driver that stays out, as is Alex Gall.
Yep, so they're going to look to go for that long stint. Question now is where Carlos Fenalosa turns out in comparison. There is your race leader, Aaron Vasquez. Here comes Fenalosa now along the front stretch. It's a long drag to get up to speed. He's going to fly by. They're only just leaving the pit. So Simone Maria Marcheno, yes, he's been able to pull the gap down a little bit, but not enough to really make a sizable dent. And now they're having to battle coming out of the pit lane. Maciejewski there trying to get past Quintaille there, and that was full position. Xabi Rose now all over him like a hot rash.
Yeah, Rose really looking to be able to attack here at this point. Going to think about a little bit of a move there, going down into Tosa, but not going to go for it. Look for the setup here. Look for Rose to really and truly just build the pressure here over the next half a lap and launch a massive attack off of Ravazza.
Well, he's going to have to try and find a way, a traditional way, to make this pass, because you can't really get it done here at Acqua Minerale. Or you can have a big wiggle off the exit. Xabi Rose is using all the circuits, so too is Maciejewski. They're pushing each other to 100%, coming onto those hard tyres. They don't have time at this point to keep themselves calm, as the race leader, Aaron Vasquez, is down in the lane, Justin.
And the preparation continuing to work dividends when it comes to the Altus machines. Let's get emphasize that before today's race and how things played out last time out. So that's just about close up the window. Others like Nunez and Gal also expected to come through pretty soon. In fact, Gal went back down. Remember, we talked about how Gal put a lot of pressure to do well today because of the issues that happened at the Red Bull Ring, and already factoring in the potential of the point tallies at Pocono, which is an oval race, keep in mind, for this pro qualifier. So there's already those thought process in. By the way, it's worth noting amongst those for your race leader, in fact, Fenalosa, he did mention last time up, because that incident with the spin, he was still having to drive that race time last time with a bent steering column because of that contact. He looked to just keep it clean today. Guess what? He's keeping it clean solo. Same can be said for Maciejewski, who had the goal coming into today of not getting a black flag for incident points. He's currently top 5.
Yeah, he's doing a really good job at this moment in time. If you're going to keep yourself out of trouble, now is the time to do it. Quintaille, the only driver yet to come down in, really make something happen. Marquez, of course, on the hard tyre, still needs to make his one mandatory pit stop as well. So it's Fenalosa who leads. It's Simone Maria Marcheno in second. Aaron Vasquez currently in third. But all of that work to try and build those margins, it's not worked. They haven't been able to pull away fully from the group in 4th and 5th positions. Xabi Rose and Jakub Maciejewski making their works happen as DJ Quintaille finally departs and makes this race now firmly into the second phase of this race.
Yeah, the only person we're waiting on coming down into pit lane is Marquez here at this point, and it looks like they're going to stay out on the number 18, but I think those tires are absolutely falling off a cliff here as they run. We ride on board with Xavi right now, trying to see if they're able to gain down a little bit on those two Altus Esports teammates in front of him. Good line there down into the braking zone for Tosa. Not going to be able to carry nearly as much speed on the exit, though.
A heavy, heavy climb up the hill towards Piratella as he now finds himself 6th gear, flicks it down 1 into 5th, fighting the car over the bumps off of the exit, and now again into 6th, not even changing gears through the right, down 2 to get through Acqua Minerale and back up the hill again. These cars are so brilliant with the way they're naturally aspirated. And the one thing that isn't really talked about, DJ, is the wing mirrors, because they don't have natural wing mirrors. They've got those mirrors enveloped into the cockpit design.
Yeah, it's one of the things that's really unique about this car, and kind of Delara, obviously, in combination with iRacing, coming up with an idea to make this car as streamlined and aerodynamic as possible. And one of the easiest ways to do that was changing those wing mirrors around in order to create the right streamline effect down the cars. We've got to move.
We do. Simone's going to fall behind. Aaron Vasquez is going to take some donkey work then at the front of this field. And they have to be alert with the way they want to chase if they want to reel back Carlos Fenalosa. Or you can have Chabi Rose deciding he wants to get into the play through the Villeneuve chicane and over towards Tosa, and a track which really has been made into one of those legendary circuits. It's the sort of track where it's the ultimate one-lap circuit.
Yeah, it's very, very much one of the best circuits to be able to hot lap. And it's often said if you're able to put a good hot lap down here at Imola, you can put down a good hot lap absolutely anywhere. It's that technical. It has that much of a breadth of corners that you're able to run through. And so really and truly, this is the ultimate hot lap track. When it comes to racing, you are seeing the one drawback. Really only one definitive braking zone to be able to make a pass, and that going down into Tamburello.
And most of that down to the fact that racing has changed, and this was all down to the 2006-2007 designs of this circuit, the reconfiguration made by Herman Tilke to make this circuit fit for formula purposes to be FIA grade A in terms of being able to race. Now everybody sits in line and everybody waits and saves some fuel because they're not close enough to make a move and they're not far enough into this race, funnily enough, to go out there and make the race their own. That's where they find themselves in terms of position right now. They don't have to be overly aggressive here because they know they have chances later on in this race.
Exactly, and the one thing that's a little bit interesting about this section of the race is this is where incidents and accidents can actually start to creep in a little bit more. If you're pushing at 10/10ths, that's what you're used to. That is your default. When you start to back off a little bit, maybe back up the braking zone, it'll throw you out of that rhythm a little bit. And so you still have to be perfectly alert as you drive it around, even though you're driving just a fraction or two slower.
You can be there at 99% and that car will bite. It is that sort of machine where you have to be very switched on every single phase of the way. Front group looking brilliant, second through fifth. I want to take a little peer back to about Michael Janney, if that's possible, because he's got a massive maelstrom of cars behind him. He has Manuel Kubo, he has Marcos Nunez, Matt Emery, Kalen Chin. They're all there, they all want to get through, but they're all just slightly strung out a little bit. They've got work to do if they want to try and move through and move up that extra position, but they know that they are where they are based on their strategy, and the difference in points for one position can be as much in this series, DJ, as a 60-point swing.
Yeah, and those points, especially by the time we come down to the end of this qualifying series, will be absolutely crucial. So these drivers doing exactly the same thing we saw at the front of the field, holding back a little bit more, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. And although these drivers with Kubo and Nunez and Emery a little bit more spaced out than what we've seen.
They are a bit spaced out, so they are going to have to work to get back into range. But this is the sort of circuit which does sort of punish you in the middle sector of the circuit to be too close. You have to make sure that you're timing that run. And really, I think that's where the Curva Grassini is the most important corner on this circuit, because it allows you that opportunity to set up the final sector of the lap down the hill into Ravazza 1, and that's where you can attack and try and make something happen. And this is where you have to be the most alert.
Very, very much so, and it's a good point there, especially in the high downforce cars such as this. Coming down into Ravazza, it's a little bit more of a brush braking corner. And yes, you have Ravazza 1 and Ravazza 2, but it's really one continuous corner at the end of the lap, and you want to roll as much momentum as you can through that corner. So as you said, the launch off of Grassini is the absolute push point.
So who is going to push then with 12 laps to go here at Imola? They wake up knowing that after this race, they will head to one of iRacing's new circuits on its service. Not new as in last build, but the build before that. They're heading to Jerez.
And that is going to be another big challenge for these drivers. A lot of momentum to be carried around that track, and very similar to what we see here today. Not a lot of primary overtaking opportunities. I think that one here is going to be a very, very qualifying dependent race.
and we will see how that goes 1 week from today. But we've still got great racing happening at the moment with Fenelos's 3.5 second lead plus at the front of this field. It's now about wake up for this second group with Daniel Sibisabo starting to get reeled in, and you start noticing about that fuel element. Who's using enough fuel? Someone like Daniel Sibisabo absolutely will let Michael Janney go through, because guess what? I'm saving upwards of half a litre a lap.
You read my mind. I was going to bring that point up exactly. Sibisabo wants to be second in line here at this point. He's been the one leading, pushing all of that clean air out of the way and developing a lot of drag. Now that he's going to be able to tuck up behind Michael Janney, it's going to be a lot easier to lift and coast and let the draft do the work for him.
Yeah, and it's all about getting as free a ride as you possibly can. You still have to keep up the same pace as the car in front of you, but it's about being alert to what everybody else needs out there in terms of the racing. And this is a really interesting dynamic as well, when you've got drivers in the Apex Academy car who are as quick, if not quicker, than the main team there of Apex Racing. It puts you in a really difficult situation as a team owner out there like Alex Simpson is, on which drivers in the Academy do I want to go and promote up to be full-fledged drivers of the Apex Racing team.
Yeah, it's really pretty special to see that ladder system starting to develop here, and massive credit to Apex for being able to do that. And you're seeing a couple of those Academy drivers prove their salt out here this weekend. We've seen them compete in other races as well, and it really and truly is a way to build a ladder system very similar to what you see in modern Formula racing.
Well, I guess Helmut Simpson doesn't quite ring off the tongue, but he's certainly a sort of fantastic character and one of the forward thinkers when it comes to sim racing. Now you start working out what is happening at the front. I am just alert to the gap that the last time we looked, that gap was 3.5 seconds. It's now suddenly 5, because I think Vasquez, Marcheno, Rose and Maciejewski, they're playing guinea pig. No one wants to lead that group.
No, I think they're backing it off a little bit. It's almost 5 seconds here at this point as they go. Yeah, I think they're all worried about fuel saving here at this point, and Simone Maria Marcheno doesn't want to necessarily make a move on Vasquez at this point, because I think they'll be worried that Xavi will be able to move their way up into that podium contention and throw a wrench into the works here of this Altus lockout.
Yeah, and they definitely want to try and go back-to-back on throwing the podium in their hands, but they are also at risk of bringing Michael Janney's group into play. That gap's only 2.4 seconds, and Maciejewski's starting to peek his nose out, get a little bit of perspective in his sights as he runs behind these three just in front, and he will be the first bastion of defense to those who are behind, those who are trying to chase. So keep an eye on times. Maciejewski last time by 1:18.3, Janney 18.1, took 0.2 of a second out, but you get within 1.5 seconds, and that's it. You're pretty much winning the game of tug of war.
Exactly. If you're able to pull up within a second, these cars are going to absolutely vacuum onto the back here of Michael Janney, and so he has got to, or onto the back of Maciejewski, he has got to watch out for that. However slow this is, if I'm Jakob here at this point, I'm going to push. I'm going to go, and it may change my strategy just a little bit as a result.
And Justin, I'm going to come to you for this. 10 drivers who are there, or 9 drivers we could say, because the leader's away. 9 drivers with 2 spaces on the podium. There are going to be 7 people going home unhappy.
Yeah, that's the interesting part is a little bit of bobble up towards the front of the grouping there for a second. Was just talking about this with Primožek Limenek, the spotter for Maciejewski for today's race in that 5th position. They actually were saying, while there's a bit of understeer here right now, they're more so focused on just managing the race, get to the end, prevent getting to the incident mark, since they got a full Rex from the S's to start off this race. He's already been emphasizing, in his opinion, P5 is good enough for the qualifiers to be able to get themselves a pro invitation for the point standings. However, it's the question mark of what DJ may have thought you'd have to think too. Does anyone have that change if that pack fully closes? Because P5 is all well and good. P7 on back, you get a little bit more dicey, you'd have to think, DJ.
Yeah, you certainly would. So we'll have to see here what they decide to do. By the way, Pablo Espas just setting the fastest lap of the race out of 17th position. Definitely a day of what could have been there for that number 5 driver. But good news here for Jakob in this leading group. It's 2 seconds here at this point, so they've still got some breathing room.
And they're starting to fight in and amongst their group. Marcos Nunez and Manel Kubo find themselves now starting to check each other up. It's allowing Matt Emery there right in the back of shot to try and think about making moves as well. Everybody is trying to wake up and find themselves with track position. But the thing about track position, it's like trying to extricate yourself, really, DJ, from a rose bush. It's thorny, it's prickly, and it hurts a lot more getting out than it is going in.
Very much so. If you try to get out of this, you're going to get an absolute full blast of that clean air in front of you, and it's going to slow you down a little bit as it goes. So you've got to time that run perfectly when you know you've got enough overspeed to be able to get on by.
And just taking a look at Carlos Fenalosa, his last lap was a 19. That gap is now down to 2.8 seconds. So there had to be a mistake somewhere in the lap for Carlos, which has dropped him that time. And that is going to be very, very concerning for him out at the front of this field. That one small mistake, because it can creep in when you're on your own like this.
Yeah, it really can. You don't have that sort of driver behind you to keep you honest and to keep you going, but you've got to be careful about it. Now, the one thing that I will say is that gap has plummeted down. Look at that, 2.7, 2.3 seconds here at this point. I think he's going to be okay here, Will Fenalosa, but he's got to keep an eye out for his gearbox.
He's got to keep an eye out on the gearbox. He's got to keep an eye out on the fuel. He's got to keep an eye out, full stop, at this point. Last time by, Vasquez an 18.2, took 0.4 of a second away. I'm not sure that's enough to chase that down, but the fact that they're not fighting amongst each other in that group here in second position on back, just keeping Michael Jani away, just closing down, that's Fenalosa. Fenalosa's going to have to find a couple of good laps to give himself that security into the final 5 here at Imola, knowing that this circuit has a tendency to bring in grandstand finishes. 2005 is one that always comes into mind as the emergence of one legendary Spaniard, Fernando Alonso.
One of the greatest defenses ever put on in the history of racing, the duel between Alonso and Schumacher, the stuff of absolute legend. Could we see another similar duel here in these final 5 laps between Vasquez, Maria Marcheno, Oroz, and Maciejewski?
Well, you have one Spaniard, an Italian, a second Spaniard, and then the pole in that 5th position, all trying to figure out who wants those points and who is going to push to try and get what they want. And I think it's all about who is going to light up that race late as they go through. Simone has been patient. Simone has been waiting with Aaron Vasquez. And I wonder if there is a treaty between these two at the moment. We're not going to race now until we can guarantee our position. That secondary group is trying to work really hard to get back in. Michael Jani, 18.4 that last time by. He's just not got enough here, DJ, to close that down. You'll have to start looking around at him because it will soon be the inmates running the asylum, the 2 academy drivers there, and of course the Altus driver, the 4th Altus driver in this field, Marcos Nunez, trying to make that progress up through the field.
Yeah, and at this point, I think if you're Michael Jani, you have got to be hoping for some kind of incident or accident. Almost a little bit of a look there from Nunez coming down at Aqua Minerale. But I think for Jani, losing hope a little bit of catching up to the drivers in front, this may start to be a little bit of a rear view mirror race where he has just got to go on the absolute defense.
Yeah, that absolute defense might soon have to be in the back of the mind, and you leave yourself so vulnerable on that 1 kilometre front stretch heading over towards Tamburello, which does wind through the back of the paddock and over towards that section of road over the fabled turn 1, which used to be flat out in this machine where they didn't have the chicanes. Was one of the most legendary challenges. It used to be flat out all the way to Tosa. Of course, the chicane's in for safety after 1994, but this is the circuit where you look behind yourself at Ravazza, you're just praying that you've got a chance on the brakes by the time you reach Tamburello.
Exactly. You do not want to see that car sneaking up your inside. It is so hard to be able to get that defense, but I love here what I'm seeing out of Marco Nunez on the back of Manel Kubo. Absolute attack, poking this way, poking that way, trying to force an error.
He is very much like a boxer's jab at this moment in time, trying to feel out if there is any weakness in this tactical game of chess at over 180 miles an hour at points on this track. This is an absolute all-out onslaught, and look at how much he's fighting with the oversteer, the counter-steering he's having to put in just because he's on the back of 3 lots of wake through the Curva Gracini.
Yeah, so much there because of that arrow wake, but now on the straightaway, this is where that arrow wake goes away, and it's all now down to the draft. Let's see here. It doesn't look like he's got enough of a run, and Kubo's certainly feeling it. That's not an offensive move there out of Manel. That is a move to break the draft to Nunez behind.
Yeah, so moving defensive then, takes his line naturally. He was not going to be attacked then in through that section of road. 3 laps to go for Carlos Fenalosa. The gap has stabilised at the front of the field. 2.1 seconds it stands at the moment as it climbs back up that gap with the power that they've got. And now you're starting to sense, at what point does Aaron Vasquez realise that he is fodder for Simone Maria Marcheno? What a race that Aaron Vasquez has had, by the way, though, DJ. Started 5th row of the grid, and he's up and he's looking at 2nd place.
A combination of capitalizing on others' misfortune and driving a pixel-perfect race. This is a really, really good run and a great way to start off the season. 2 second places here, or 2 podiums in a row. Going to be great.
One of which a victory, the other a 2nd place. It will put him as the favourite of the qualifiers when it comes to Mainstay Series in the autumn. But he's still got 2 laps to go, and Simone Maria Marcheno with 9,800 iRating had a think about making that move to the inside. Had a think, didn't quite make it happen. But this is such a narrow circuit, if he feigns to go and make the move, he could effectively block out Xabi Rose from a space on the podium if they coordinate it properly.
Certainly could. This is a little bit of that teammate principle coming into play here. Oh, big wibble!
Look at that, just like what happened earlier on last week. It is Simone Maria Marcheno with a mistake that costs him out of the Villeneuve chicane, too much curb on the exit, and he finds out, again, it doesn't cost his race, but it costs him 3 vital positions for his championship.
It certainly does, and what's crucial here for Aaron Vasquez that we follow on our screen, that gap is now at about 0.8 of a second, and that could be just enough to keep Javi behind him.
Yes, but they are running out of time here, DJ. The white flag will soon be there at the hands of Carlos Fenalosa.
Yes, it certainly will, and so that means if you are Javi or you are Jakob here at this point, it is full attack mode. Go, go, go.
A mistake, though, for Xabi Rose. He attacks too much out of Ravazza. This will open the chance. White flag for Fenalosa. Here comes Maciejewski then, searching for the podium. Kuba is through, up into 3rd position then, with the most basic of passes, and that is the biggest compliment you can give at this point of time. It was as traditional, it was basic, it was by the book, it was brilliant to get that done. Maciejewski capitalizing. There goes Xabi Rose. Xabi Rose around, tires into the barriers, and just like that, he'll have to scamper home, wounded as he now tries to go through. A big mistake from the young star as he now realizes his race in jeopardy here in the final stages. It's still there for 2nd and 3rd. Maciejewski still hasn't given up hope here on Aaron Vasquez, but I think that may just be a bridge too far. That gap's still 0.7 of a second, and you just wonder, the cautious nature of Maciejewski. He's looking to book a ticket, but the best ticket in the house is with number 6, Carlos Fenalosa, who finds himself now heading through Ravazza 1 and Ravazza 2 as dominant as it comes. It was aggressive, it was bold, it was beautiful. It's Carlos Fenalosa who finds fantastic results here at Imola.
Absolutely fantastic drive for Fenolosa and for Vasquez. Got a little bit more battle farther back in the field. Gall and Chin drag racing to the line.
Oh, that was close. And I think Alex Gal here might have just stolen that one here. And he has by about 300ths of a second over Kalen Chin. And my, could that tell for top 14 classification for either of them at the end of this season. Race for 10th and 11th position. The last few drivers they're making their way through. Marcos Luzio will lead. Alessandro Quintalle and co to the line. The last driver will be Gael Vieiro, because it looks like there were issues on the last lap for Pablo Espes, so he will be a retiree on the last lap of this race as we hand ourselves back over after a scintillating race here at Imola over to Joey Atterbury and Justin Prince.
Well, how about that, to say the very least? An exciting finish and an exciting sprint for many others to battle for points, but mistakes building up to close out the action, Joey. That is a major storyline, to say the very least, for some of these drivers. Let's take a look at the unofficial race results as they cross the line. Foley, Carlos Fidalosa, Vasquez, Machalinski amongst the top three. Then you have Renziel with a good run in fourth, but what could have been for decent points for others. Gianni, Chevy Chabo, Torres, Nunez, Emery, and Gao. A big race for car 11 with the 10th place run. They needed to have a decent finish. In turn, Alex doing so today. Amongst those in the back half of this field, though, it was intriguing for some of the others. Kellen Chin floated up from 14th to 11th. Henkel, Xabi Ross, along with Alargo, along with Lucio, Quintana, Marinquez, along with Valero, and Espes, one lap down because of what happened in the early going. 2 times in the past 2 weeks, issues for Pablo Espes.
Yeah, it seems like he can't escape the racetrack and some of the pitfalls that go along with it, while others are just having great results out there. Those Altis cars really dominating the way, but it's not only Espes with the problems. You got to remember, Alex Gal comes home with the top 10 here today, but not really the race that he wanted either.
We got Jakob actually on the line here as he finished up inside the top 3. A big race today for him. His goal coming in, he said on social media, limit the incident points. He limited the incident points today and also had the speed. The Drug Racing driver now joins us here for post-race coverage. Jakob, how would you describe the car for today? A big turnaround today after the first round with the 17 incidents.
Hello. Yeah, really good race. Better than expected. The most important thing was obviously avoiding the track limits that are really hard here, and I managed to do so in quali, which and just avoiding the incident put me very high on the grid, and with a good start I managed to P3. Then the car is like there is such a big difference between the car in clean and dirty air that I just decided that it's better if I drive behind someone. So I wasn't really fighting this race, just avoiding trouble, avoiding incidents, as I said. And in the end, I managed to sneak 2 positions and finish P3. So yeah, I'm very happy.
Well, Jakob, I want to talk to you a little bit about the race as a whole, because you have a great podium finish, but for a while there, you were kind of looking in there. And what was it? Was it just the car spinning off, or was it confidence maybe with the speed at the end of the race to start moving up there?
Yeah, so I was like, with the draft being so strong, we are basically driving on a brake 200 meters before the braking. So it was very easy to save the tires. And I managed to do so perfectly. And when Simone made a mistake, I think 2 laps to go, I was like, hey, that's perfect gap behind Xavi Ross now. Let's try to go for it. And then I went for it. And as you could see, I think he actually spun after I passed him. So these people were on the edge with the tires, and I think I did pretty well on them by just coasting on the entries and trying to save them as much as possible.
How big is this for your organization with how you've been doing now in the qualifiers? Because the organization itself started off just a few months ago, has made some waves with qualifying speed and special events and other series. But how big is it to have this type of a run in the pro qualifiers to solidify strong points, to build that pro series representation even more?
Yeah, I think honestly this is huge. Yeah, I wasn't even aware actually of how young we are during this race, and actually that's maybe not first podium in a big race for us, but for sure first podium in a pro qualifying series. So I hope this is just the beginning, and and we will show up even better during the actual Pro Series. If of course, if I make it into the Pro Series. So yeah, I'm really happy I can represent this team, and that it shows that we have a lot of potential.
Well, thank you very so much for the time here in this post-race coverage.
Yeah, thank you guys.
That's your third place runner, Majeski having a strong run for Drago Racing, a top 3 run here today. And what was a tough racetrack in general. We've seen that especially with some of the drivers who picked up incidents in the closing stages, but also the opening stages. Some drivers did talk about how this was a funnel type of a racetrack, Joey, entering the day in turn 1. That's where some of the really big fireworks happen, especially the exit of that complex at some points.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to survive turn 1, and you are right. Here at Imola, huge funnel going into the first chicane. Definitely bit some competitors, but trust me, the danger wasn't only there on the first lap. It was also throughout the entire race, some of the altering pit strategies, and then really the drama of the last couple laps, multiple front runners spinning out of the race, creating a new podium for us.
Let's take a look at some of those replays, in fact, and some of those respective situations. We talked, for example, about drivers like Asbez and Ross. This was in the tire barrier, in the closing stages. A tough time to do it, obviously, but how does that happen in these closing stages, the pressure building so much and the tire wear at its limit?
Well, in the position of Ross there, you're not only trying to attack, but you got somebody right on the back gearbox, and you're just trying to take advantage of that 900 horsepower V10 engine in the back. You climb up on the curb a little bit too much, and ultimately, you just ask a little bit too much of the car, and it says no.
We talked about Asbez, especially when it comes to some of the sequences throughout this race as well. That was an issue on his own at one point. Last week, it was contact for the rear wing that ended up sparking the end there.
I think that there's a million ways to get in trouble on the racetrack, and we're only at round 2. I think we're going to see a lot more ways to maybe end your race early with another 5 races to go in the championship. Trust me, there's a lot of excuses out there.
And we talked a bit about the pressure. Pocono is next. In turn, these drivers have a lot to see if they can battle for next time out here on FTF.GG. But until that point, it's time to say goodbye. For today's announcers, Jake Sperry and TJ Clark, for my pre- and post-race co-host, Joey Atterbury, our producer, Zach Johnson, I'm Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your day, evening, or morning. You've been watching qualifying action to our IRL ones as we sprint off to our first oval race at Pocono. We'd like to say bye from Imola.